To add rational numbers, you use the same rules for signs as we used for integers. So in this example, because I am working with fractions, I'm going to first need to get a common denominator, and then I can add the numerators. 6 is a common multiple for 3 and 6, so I'm going to make 6 my common denominator. And I would take the negative 8 times 2, since I took 3 times 2, so I get negative 16 plus 5, 6. And then I can just focus on the numerators, and I use integer addition. Negative 16 plus 5, I'm going to get a negative 11 sixths. And then I can either leave that as an improper fraction or make that into a mixed number. 6 will go into 11 once, with 5 sixths as the remainder. When adding decimals, one thing that you can do is, when you've got a positive and a negative, is subtract the absolute values. So if I just ignore the signs and subtract, if I go 7.62 minus 4 and 5/100ths, I'm going to get 3 and 57/100ths, and that would be my answer. So I just ignore the signs and then subtract in this case. Again, with this problem, we want to get common denominator, and 8 is a common multiple for 8 and 4. So I've got negative 7/8, and then if I take 4 times 2, I get 8. 1 times 2, I get 2. And then I'm just going to focus on adding the numerators. So negative 7 plus 2, I get negative 5/8. And that is our final answer. In this example, we've got 2 negative decimal numbers. When you have either 2 negatives or 2 positives, you just add the value of the numbers and then take the sign. Now in this case, I'm going to add a 0 so that I can line up my place values, and then I just need to add these because they're both negative. And when I do that, after I've added the value, then I put a negative on there, and that is our final answer. This is another example of when we've got 2 negative numbers. In this case, they're 2 negative fractions, and so we first need to get them into a situation where we've got a common denominator. 8 is the common multiple, so I'm going to have negative 1/8 plus negative 2/8. And then I just focus on my numerator. Again, since they're both negative, I just can add the value of the numbers and then put a negative sign. So negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3/8, and that's our answer. The biggest thing we need to do when we're adding and subtracting with fractions and decimals is just remember what our rules are. If we're adding and subtracting fractions, we need to first get a common denominator, and then we do the adding or subtracting with the integers. With decimal numbers, we need to make sure we line up the decimal point so that we then are lining up our place values to add or subtract with those. And then just remember your rules for integers. Those are now going to also apply to fractions and decimal numbers as we add and subtract those that are positive and negative. So you're starting to put some things together that you've been learning the last couple years with fractions, with decimals, and now with integers. So take your time, Do your best work, and if you have questions, please ask.